All right, everyone, get ready because today we were diving deep, and I mean deep, into some seriously fascinating and honestly pretty dark territory.
Yeah, this one's a big one.
We got a ton of requests for you guys to do a deep dive into the Manson family.
And it's not just about the true crime aspect of it.
Right, we're going way beyond just the headlines, beyond the gore even, to try to understand, like really understand what made this group tick.
Yeah, what made them tick and also what can we learn from this dark chapter, you know?
Totally, because there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
So we've got some great sources lined up for this one.
We do. We've got we're starting with some Wikipedia entries on the Manson family. Also the Tate LaBianca murders.
Classic.
Always a good starting point.
Yeah, gotta have that foundation.
We also have this super fascinating 2025 Smithsonian Magazine article.
Oh, nice.
And you actually included your own notes, too, which I always find so interesting.
Yeah. There's just a couple of things that really jumped out at me while I was doing some extra reading. So we'll definitely circle back to those as we go.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's set the stage here. It's the 1960s California, the heart of the counterculture movement.
Right.
Picture it, hippies everywhere,
Yeah.
social change is happening all around, everyone's searching for something different.
There's just this yearning for something more, something new.
Totally. It just seems like the perfect breeding ground for someone like Manson to emerge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what's so fascinating about Manson is how he, as this charismatic figure, but also with a really troubled past, he was able to exploit that yearning, that desire for something new that so many people were feeling at the time.
Right.
And he specifically attracted a following of mostly young women, right?
Yeah.
And he was able to kind of tap into their desire to break free from societal norms and expectations.
Right, like reject the old ways, the establishment.
Exactly. And it's interesting too. He actually he learned to play guitar in prison.
Wait, really?
From Alvin Karpis of all people.
Right, cool.
Alvin Karpis. He was a notorious gangster, like public enemy #1 back in the day.
No way. So he learns guitar from a hardened criminal. That's not just some random detail that totally adds to like his whole outlaw persona.
For sure, it adds to his mystique, his image.
Right. So he's got this magnetic personality, the music. How does this group, though, actually transform from just being these, free-spirited hippies into, well, the Manson family?
Yeah, so it's started out, pretty innocently enough, at least on the surface.
Okay.
They found this place, Spawn Ranch, which was actually a former movie set.
Oh, wow.
And it became their communal home. Free love, psychedelic drugs, rejecting all those mainstream values.
Right. It's like the classic turn on, tune in, drop out mantra of the era.
Exactly.
But then things take a much darker turn, don't they? I mean,
Right.
Was there a specific moment when things shifted, or was it more of a gradual kind of descent?
Yeah, it's tough to say if there was like a single turning point, but Manson's tactics, like his manipulative tactics, definitely became more and more intense over time.
Okay.
He went from being this, charismatic leader, kind of a cool older brother type, to being like a full-blown guru figure.
Oh, wow.
Like almost a godlike figure in their eyes. And he started twisting philosophies and prophecies to his advantage,
It's scary how easily people can be manipulated, especially when they're like searching for belonging and meaning,
Yeah, it really is.
But didn't Manson also have some surprising connections to like the Hollywood scene?
He did. This is actually where the story takes a pretty wild turn.
Okay.
So Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He picks up these two hitchhikers, Patricia Krenwinkel and Ella Jo Bailey, who, unbeknownst to him at the time, were part of the Manson family. And later that night, Wilson goes back home, and he finds Manson himself just hanging out in his driveway.
Wait, hold on. So Dennis Wilson picks up random hitchhikers who just happen to be Manson followers, and then Manson himself just like shows up. That's like something straight out of a movie.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What was Wilson thinking?
Well, it seems like he was like drawn to Manson's charisma, the allure of that whole counterculture lifestyle.
Right.
And he actually ended up bankrolling the family for a while, like paying their expenses, even arranging recording sessions for Manson's music.
Wow, he's like fully bought in.
Yeah, he was definitely intrigued by Manson. And through Wilson, Manson got a taste of Hollywood. He started, rubbing shoulders with people like Terry Melcher, who was a record producer.
So this connection to Hollywood, it essentially opens a door for Manson,
It
right?
does, it does.
It's like he's getting closer and closer to the heart of the establishment that he, like, supposedly despises.
Yeah.
But how does this lead to the infamous house on Sela Drive and Sharon Tate?
So the house on Cielo Drive, that was where Terry Melcher had lived before Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski moved in.
Oh, okay.
And Manson had actually visited Melcher there, so he knew the layout of the house.
Okay.
Even after Melcher moved out, Manson kept showing up, hoping to find him.
Wow. So all these seemingly random events, from like the hitchhiking encounter to Wilson's fascination with Manson, they create this chain of connections that ultimately leads to Cielo Drive.
Right, right. It's chilling how these, like, seemingly unconnected events converged in such a horrific way.
Yeah, it's almost like fate was like setting the stage for tragedy. But it's important to remember that the violence didn't actually start at Cielo Drive.
You're right, you're right. Before the Tate murders, there was the brutal murder of Gary Hinman.
Right, Gary Hinman, the
Mhm.
music teacher. That was a particularly gruesome murder, wasn't it?
It was.
What happened there?
So Manson sent Bobby Beausoleil, Mary Brunner, and Susan Atkins to Hinman's house because they believed he had inherited some money.
Okay.
And when Hinman said he didn't have any money, Manson himself showed up and slashed Hinman's face with a sword.
Oh my God.
And then Beausoleil ended up stabbing Hinman to death.
That's horrible.
And they wrote "Political Piggy" on the wall in blood and also drew a Black Panther symbol.
Ugh, that sends chills down my spine. The brutality, the cryptic message. It's like a window into the distorted, chaotic mindset of the family at this point.
Exactly. The Hinman murder really serves as this chilling precursor to the escalation of violence that culminates in the Tate murders.
Right, right. So let's talk about Cielo Drive. August 8th, 1969. This is the night that forever etched the Manson family into the annals of true crime. Can you take us back to that horrific night?
On that night, Manson sent Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, Linda Kasabian, and Patricia Krenwinkel to the house on Cielo Drive with one instruction: kill everyone there.
And they did, brutally murdering Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant at the time, along with Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent, who was tragically just visiting the property's caretaker. And this is where your notes, the ones you included with the sources, they really caught my attention. You highlighted Sharon Tate's desperate plea to live long enough to give birth.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's heartbreaking. It's a detail that just underscores the senselessness of it all.
Yeah, it really personalizes the tragedy. It's easy to get caught up in the facts of the case, but it's important to remember that these were real people, with lives and dreams and loved ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as if the Cielo Drive murders weren't horrific enough, the very next night they target another home, don't they?
Do, the LaBianca house. On August 9th, 1969, Manson, along with several of his followers, drove to the home of Lano and Rosemary LaBianca. Manson and Tex Watson went inside the house, tied up the couple, and then left. Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Leslie Van Houten stayed behind and brutally murdered the LaBiancas. They wrote messages on the walls with their blood, including "Rise," "Death to Pigs," and the misspelled "Helter Skelter."
You also mentioned in your notes this bizarre detail about Susan Atkins defecating in the stairwell after a botched murder attempt. What's the significance of that, if any?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but it really highlights the chaotic and seemingly irrational nature of these crimes,
Yeah.
It wasn't just about murder, it was about creating terror and confusion.
Right.
It's almost like they wanted to leave their mark not just through the violence, but through these bizarre and disturbing acts.
It's like they were trying to send a message, but a message that's just completely jumbled and incoherent.
Yeah.
It speaks to the twisted psychology at play here. It's like a mix of delusion and rage and this desperate need for control.
And it's important to remember that while Manson was the mastermind behind these acts, his followers were active participants. They weren't just mindless robots. They were individuals who made choices, however influenced they might have been by Manson's manipulation.
Right. It makes you wonder, though, how do they catch these people?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these murders, especially with like the strange messages and seemingly random victims, they must have thrown the police for a loop.
Oh, for sure. It was a very chaotic investigation, especially at first. The police were initially investigating the Tate and LaBianca murders separately. They didn't realize they were connected.
Oh, wow.
And the social upheaval of the late 60s also created a lot of noise and distraction, making it even harder to sift through the evidence and identify the culprits.
So what was the breakthrough? What finally connected the dots for the investigators?
It came from a pretty unexpected source, Susan Atkins.
Oh, wow.
While she was in jail for the Hinman murder, Atkins started bragging to her cellmates about the other murders, revealing details about the crimes and Mancy's involvement.
Wow, that's a classic case of loose lips sink ships. So Atkins' confession basically blew the case wide open.
It did. Her confession, along with the physical evidence that the police have been gathering, started to paint a clear picture of the family's involvement in the murders. And you actually highlighted another interesting detail in your notes, the discovery of the murder weapon.
Oh, right. It's almost unbelievable that a 10-year-old boy found the .22 caliber revolver used in the Tate murders.
I know.
And it almost got overlooked by the police. It just shows how chaotic the investigation was in those early days.
Yeah, it really is a reminder that sometimes the smallest details can be the most crucial.
So with Atkins' confession and the physical evidence, the net starts to close in on the Manson family. It's fascinating how, even with all the chaos and confusion, the truth eventually surfaces.
Like a puzzle, right? With all these seemingly random pieces slowly coming together to reveal the bigger picture.
It is, and it's a testament to the persistence of the investigators and the power of even the smallest details to shed light on the darkest of secrets. But the story doesn't end there.
It doesn't.
We've got the arrests, the trial, the aftermath, and more shocking revelations to come. Stay with us as we delve deeper into the trial, the convictions, and the lingering impact of the Manson family on our culture and psyche.
This is just the beginning.
Okay, so we left off with the Manson family. They're finally facing justice for these horrific crimes.
Yeah.
But we know the story doesn't, neatly end with a guilty verdict, right?
Right.
The impact of these events, it rippled outward,
Hmm.
affecting the victims' families, the people involved in the case, and honestly, society as a whole. Where do we even begin to unpack this really complex aftermath?
Well, I think it's essential to start by considering the profound and lasting trauma inflicted on the victims' families.
Right.
The grief, the fear, the sense of loss. Those wounds, they don't heal easily.
No, they don't.
Take Sharon Tate's family, for example.
Yeah.
Her sister, Deborah Tate, has dedicated her life to advocating for victims' rights. She's worked tirelessly to make sure that Manson and his followers remained incarcerated.
It's a powerful reminder that justice, while, extremely important, it can't erase the pain.
No, it can't.
Those left behind, they carry the burden of these crimes not just for a moment, but for their entire lives. It makes me wonder about the psychological impact on those who actually worked on the case,
Yeah.
Did this darkness linger with them?
Absolutely. Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor in the Manson trial, he spoke very openly about how deeply the case affected him. He wrote about how it haunted his dreams even, long after the trial ended.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine
Yeah.
what it must have been like to delve into the mind of someone like Manson, to confront that level of depravity?
It's hard to even fathom. It's a stark reminder that even those tasked with upholding justice, they aren't immune to the emotional toll of these cases.
Right.
We often focus on the perpetrators and the victims, but what about those caught in between?
Yeah.
Working tirelessly to bring some semblance of order to such chaos. Their stories are important too.
They are. And then, of course, there are the family members themselves. What happened to them after their convictions?
Well, their death sentences were commuted to life in prison, which meant the possibility of parole, right?
Right.
But I have a feeling that, most of them probably remained behind bars.
Yeah, you're right. For the most part, they did remain incarcerated. Susan Atkins, who was the first to confess, she died in prison in 2009 from brain cancer.
Oh, wow.
Patricia Krenwinkel is actually still serving her sentence. She's been denied parole numerous times.
Wow.
And then, of course, Manson himself, he died in prison in 2017.
It's strange to think that he was alive so recently,
Yeah.
It feels like he's been this mythical figure looming over us for so long.
He definitely cast a long shadow. However, over time, even within the prison system, Manson's influence, it kind of faded. He lost that magnetic hold he once had over his followers.
Yeah.
The myth, in a sense, was broken.
Right. But as we kind of touched on earlier, that myth continued to grip the public's imagination, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
I mean, even today, there's still this huge fascination with the Manson family. The rumors of more victims, the endless debates about his motives, the books, the documentaries. People are still trying to, like, piece together this puzzle to understand the why.
Yeah, there's this morbid curiosity that we can't seem to shake, and the media definitely plays a role in that, right?
Oh, for sure.
Constantly rehashing the details, keeping the Manson family story alive.
Yes, I was like, we're compelled to revisit this darkness over and over again, like trying to make sense of it all. But I think it's also about more than just morbid curiosity.
Right, kick, you're right.
The Manson family murders happened at this really pivotal moment in American history.
Yeah.
Right as the optimism of the 60s was giving way to a sense of disillusionment and fear.
Right.
And they became this symbol of the dark underbelly of the counterculture movement.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The Manson family murders, they weren't just a random act of violence. They became this cultural touchstone, almost a warning sign, you could say, of the fragility of peace and the potential for evil to exploit our vulnerabilities.
Right.
And that message, unfortunately, still resonates today, maybe even more so in our world of increasing uncertainty and fear.
It's unsettling to think that something like this could happen again,
Yeah.
that the darkness could resurface, especially in times of societal change and unrest. It's like a reminder that we can never be truly complacent.
Exactly. And there's another layer to this story that we haven't explored yet.
Yeah.
It came up in your notes, and it adds another twist to this already complicated narrative.
Oh yeah. I was particularly drawn to this. This is the revelation by Catherine Scher, who was a former family member.
Right.
That her testimony during Manson's trial, it was a lie.
Wow.
She claims it was fabricated under Manson's direction. It completely blew my mind when I read that.
That's a huge bombshell. Scher's testimony, it was like a cornerstone of the copycat motive presented by the defense,
Yeah.
The idea that the Tate LaBianca murders were meant to free Bobby Beausoleil.
Right.
But if her testimony was indeed a lie, it dismantles that entire defense strategy.
It does. It paints this chilling picture of Manson's continued control, even from behind bars. Like, imagine manipulating the legal system itself.
Right.
It just further cements his image as this master manipulator.
It really does. It raises a lot of questions about what other secrets might be hidden beneath the surface. It reminds us that the pursuit of truth, in this case, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
We may never fully understand the depths of Manson's influence or the true motives behind these horrific acts.
It's like peeling back layers on an onion,
Yeah.
And with every layer, you think you're getting closer to the core, but then you realize there's another layer, another mystery to unravel. It makes you question everything you thought you knew. But at the same time, it's hard to resist the allure of trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah, it is. We're naturally drawn to trying to understand the why behind these heinous acts, but maybe in this case there's no neat and tidy answer.
Yeah.
Maybe the chaos and irrationality, that's part of what makes this story so enduringly fascinating and terrifying.
It's a reminder that evil doesn't always fit into neat categories.
Right.
Sometimes it's messy and senseless and impossible to fully grasp, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We have to keep asking questions, keep searching for answers, even if those answers are uncomfortable or unsettling.
Absolutely. And as we delve further into the aftermath, we'll uncover even more complexities, more contradictions, and perhaps even more disturbing truths about the Manson family and their legacy.
So buckle up, folks. This deep dive is far from over.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground in this deep dive, from the rise of the Manson family to the horrific murders and that really complex aftermath.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
It has, but there's this one question that I feel like continues to haunt us, the one that's been at the heart of this whole conversation.
The why.
Exactly, why? What drove Manson to orchestrate these terrible acts?
It's the question everyone asks, isn't it?
It is. And even with all the information we have, all the theories, all the speculation, there's still no easy answer.
Nope.
Manson's true motives, they remain a mystery even after all these years.
A mystery.
It's almost like trying to solve a puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing.
Right.
We've got the Helter Skelter theory, this idea of Manson trying to, ignite a race war based on his warped interpretation of the Beatles' music.
Yeah, yeah.
Was he really that delusional, that consumed by this apocalyptic vision?
I mean, the Helter-Skelter scenario, it definitely paints a picture of a man driven by his own, like, twisted ideology.
Yeah.
But then you have the misspelled messages at the crime scenes, the seemingly random victims, those bizarre rituals.
Oh, right.
The pieces don't quite fit together.
That's what I find so unsettling. You know, if it was all about Helter-Skelter, you'd think there would be more consistency, a clearer message.
Right.
But the chaos, the randomness, it almost feels like a distraction.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if there was something else at play, something we haven't even considered.
Well, some people believe that the copycat motive holds more weight. The idea that the Tate LaBianca murders were, like, staged to frame Bobby Beausoleil for the Gary Hinman murder.
Oh, okay.
Which, that suggests a level of cunning and calculation that does align with Manson's manipulative nature.
Right, right.
But even that theory doesn't fully account for the sheer brutality and the bizarre ritualistic elements of the crimes.
Yeah, and you highlighted Catherine Scher's recanted testimony in your notes.
Oh, right.
The claim that her entire story about the copycat motive was a lie, fabricated under Manson's direction.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. It adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
It's like Manson was still pulling the strings, even from behind bars.
Right.
It makes me wonder if we'll ever truly know the full truth.
It's possible.
Maybe the real answer lies somewhere between these theories. You know, a complex interplay of delusion, power, and a deep-seated need to control and manipulate.
Yeah, I mean, Manson was a master of deception.
He was.
A chameleon who shifted his persona and motives to suit his needs.
Right.
He reveled in the mystery, the fear, the power it gave him.
Right.
So trying to pin him down to a single rational explanation,
Yeah.
it might be an impossible task.
It's almost like he wanted to create chaos, not just in the world, but in our understanding of him. He wanted to be a cipher, an enigma that we'd spend decades trying to decode.
And in a way, he succeeded.
He did. He did. The Manson family story continues to fascinate and horrify us precisely because it defies easy explanation.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
It forces us to confront the darker side of human nature, the potential for evil to lurk in unexpected places.
And that's the most important takeaway from this deep dive, isn't it?
What's that?
The Manson family story isn't just about a charismatic cult leader or a series of horrific crimes.
Right.
It's a cautionary tale about the fragility of our own beliefs, the dangers of blind faith, and the importance of critical thinking.
You know, your initial request for this deep dive, it really resonated with me. You wanted to understand not just the what, but the why.
Yeah.
And while we may never have a definitive answer to that question,
Right.
the process of exploring it, of piecing together the puzzle, it has been incredibly insightful, albeit, unsettled.
I agree. It's forced us to confront uncomfortable truths, to challenge our own assumptions, and to consider the broader societal forces that can create the conditions for such darkness to emerge.
We've covered so much ground today, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
The Manson family story, with all its complexities and contradictions, it continues to resonate with us because it speaks to something deeper, something about the human condition that we're still trying to understand.
Right.
It's a story that will likely continue to be debated, analyzed, and reinterpreted for generations to come.
And that's the power of a good deep dive, isn't it?
What's that?
It opens up more questions than it answers, leaving us with a sense of wonder, a desire to learn more, and perhaps a renewed sense of vigilance about the world around us.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into the Manson family. Thanks for joining us on this journey. And remember, stay curious, stay informed, but most importantly, stay critical. Until next time.